Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing, the podcast for manufacturing leaders and professionals.
Designed for high impact on your way to work or unwind on your way home to gain clarity for tomorrow.
Step out of your comfort zone and discover new perspectives to add value, get results, and make a difference.
Yes, let's jump in.
Well, I don't know how much we've talked, Dave, about how we met and this relationship developed between this Canadian and the guy from the US here. But one thing I do remember is that when we were introduced, you were very quick to help me with what you knew. You remember that, Dave?
Man, I don't know where you're going with this one, but come on, tee it up for me.
And right away, as people that are trying to help manufacturing the same space, sometimes when you meet people, they can be guarded, hold their cards up. And there's, certain strategies around that. Dave, you right away were, explaining to me, some of the work with your clients and some of the new things that you found successful for yourself. And you really wanted to help me out right away.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was opportunity there early on when we met face to face in a large group. You and I really connected because it was pretty easy to size up some folks that had their guard up, that weren't willing to kind of lay it all out there. And at the end of the day, we're all people, and whether we're in manufacturing or some other industry, it's just a matter of putting the pieces together and just being real. I mean, stepping out and just being yourself.
And for mindfulness, all the different reasons why we bring this forward is just being aware and seeing others and not just seeing them through your own personal needs. And some people just are able to build those relationships, as we talked about in the last podcast, that foundation of dialogue. And, it was 1995 that Daniel Goleman came out with the Emotional Intelligence book, but it was also about the same time that I met Nick DeLoya, not long after that. And Nick is on with us today, and welcome, Nick.
Hey, welcome, guys. Hi, how are you?
Welcome, Nick.
And I'm excited because I remember somebody saying to me very early on, hey, this guy, he could sell ice to an Eskimo, and about this sales aspect. And you had a different response to that, Nick. What did you take out of that?
It's interesting because I've heard that a few times from different people, and I don't see myself in that role. In fact, I've never really had that role as a formal position in my career. I've worked in business development and, of course, some engineering type of functions, being commercial leader and that stuff, working in the plants and the factories, but never in a formal sales type of role. But I think when you look at sales, it really embodies successful salespeople have that unique ability, I would say, to connect with people. And Dave, I like what you said, and I wrote this down earlier. Interesting enough, the people that offer and deliver help to others are typically the ones that can hold a good relationship. And a lot of times in the role I was in, or the relationship was a transactional type of relationship, right? Where we were trying to win some work from our OEMs. But it definitely, when you take that mindset, it's helped me in my career. So I wouldn't say I'm in sales. I think I'm in the business of helping people.
Yeah. And I remember that. I remember you helping me personally, Nick. And that's a different approach and a little bit ahead of the science that we know now, and so much research on, with the rise of artificial intelligence and all the automation coming up. And it's like these skills that definitely separated people in the past are going to become more and more essential. And so where did that come from, Nick? Is that just something you grew up with? Was that something that you learned at a certain point?
Yeah, I think it just, it's just more of who I am in my DNA. Before I started my real career, which was really at Magna, you learn from different people, and you kind of gotta figure out how you're going to survive in life. never mind just, at your job, but just in general. And, but I would say I've honed it in more so meeting the great leaders we had at Magna Cosma, and just befriending them and really listening. Everyone has their own skills and traits, but for me, I gathered that, I guess, vulnerability to be able to want to offer myself and to help by the leaders that I worked for, because they enabled that. In certain cultures, you have leaders that don't enable that kind of I would say that type of forthcoming self, where you can just let it out and just be who you are. So that helped me a lot, right? The last few years, really being nurtured, I would say, but having that ability to be who I am allowed me to really start to focus on my skills. And what I do now with some of my clients is more business development, growing and diversifying. But when you look at business development, it's the same thing as having a relationship. And the more relationships you have, the more you're able to manage expectations and nurture the relationships, the better your business is going to be. If you're real about it, and if you really want to, I'll say, offer and deliver help in your transactions, because everything's a transaction. What we're doing here today is kind of learning, but it's a transaction in the sense of I'm providing you feedback and you've asked me to give. And that's a simple transaction, but we're doing it because of the relationship that we have. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it for anybody else.
That's awesome.
You may have the DNA there, but there is a time in which you have made a choice to pursue relationships, to grow, to endure, to keep your mouth shut. I mean, and giving credit to DNA, I get that.
No, that's a good point you bring out, because generally in my life, I'm more of a private person, which contradicts being a good salesperson when you think of that type of person and how they would behave. So you're absolutely right. It might be in my nature to do something, but as Trevor knows, I'm typically more of a private type of person. But I do, you asked about digging into not so much DNA and more of the learning. I don't know exactly why I'm doing it. I think it's because I feel comfortable, but I know what I've done has been important in growing my business and helping my clients grow their business. And when I talk about how to tie relationships to business development, it's linear. And I wrote down some notes here just to kind of prompt myself. But things like when I would go into a facility and talk to a general manager or one of my clients about how to grow their business, we talk a lot about diversifying. And really, when you network, you push yourself. You have to push yourself to go out of your immediate circle, just like you would when you diversify your business. And I really encourage people, when you talk about relationships in that standpoint, to diversify your network, but push yourself. Don't just go, hog wild and try to get 2,000 new relationships. It's not going to work. It's just won't. But if you pick one or two, and those one or two are kind of very focused because they serve that transaction, as I said, but they're also aligned, aligned in your beliefs and how you want to work and what you want to accomplish. To me, that's really important. So we talk about, your most small businesses focus on a 50 to 100 mile radius. Well, those are also your relationships. So 100 miles is nothing when you have a cell phone and the internet. So how do you grow that? Because there's more out there. There are people you can connect with, but you also then have to move to step two, which is you have to manage each other's expectations. You don't give what you can't get. You know what I mean? So you have to be willing to give, to get. And to give, it means really like to embrace, to listen, to see how you're going to help them. So, you have to manage those expectations, really offer your help and deliver it. Don't just say it, talk about it, like really do it. And that doesn't only build credibility, but it really allows your relationship to see, hey, this person, they heard me, they care about me, and I'm helping them. And I find if I do that, at least I try to do that stuff genuinely, but also calculated, not going to lie to you guys, there's a lot going on in life, but you really got to think through that stuff and say, okay, I need to do this. This might be hard. It might not even yield something today, but I need to do this, the right thing to do. And it's really going to build the trust and the expectations. So we have to manage expectations. It's key. And then of course you have to focus your time, because your time has to be quality time. You can't just, throw in 4 or 5 hours, but it needs to be really quality time. And you only have so much of it. So you got to focus yourself and apply your time effectively.
How do we do that though?
That?
that's the challenge, right? Is that, well, where do I help and where don't I? But I think you kind of answer that, Nick. And you're not going to try to build a relationship with 100 people and create depth. So it sounds like that's one of the things that you've done and you found success is that, when you have those relationships that you're start now and focus in and listen closely to the ones that you are working on now, and what value can you bring? Because sometimes we just want to, I want to talk to Nick because I need this. And you see that difference?
Yeah. Well, I think, you have to nurture relationships that are critical to your business. You have to be real in that. You can't just, again, you only have so much time. You only can do so much. But if you really think about what are the elements that are going to impact your business the most, and those are the ones you've, worked hard to build the trust and the confidence and start that relationship, you have to nurture them. At the other point, though, as business changes, and Trevor, you've probably gone through this with your business. I know I certainly have. Your contacts change. Don't be afraid of that. But there's always going to be those, it's almost like an accordion. It starts to flex. You have contacts from the good old days in automotive and manufacturing. But if you're trying to do something a little bit different, like I'm in a completely different industry, and think about that, in a very short time, you start to network and change and flex, but it doesn't mean you give up your old contacts. You always have them, right? Because they're your relationships, but you need to know where to invest your time and nurture which relationships at the right time that are most important to you and your business. And if you really look at it, you might have, I know I do, I have 4 important customers, my most important. Then I've got 23 others. But say those 4, those are the ones that not only do I care about them and I built a relationship, but I know I can be most successful. They can be most successful with me. And that transaction is very good. But I really try to, make sure if I'm going to spend my time, it's going to be on those. A lot of sales type of functions tell you the complete opposite. They tell you go out there and knock on doors and talk to people, but that yields a very small benefit. But if you really took care of your existing customers and look to see how you can help them very carefully, and you really nurture it, you watch that pie grow, right? And your future is much better, I think.
So I love the way this conversation is going, where Nick, it reminds me of a mentor I had at one time who said, Dave, always remember, to have, let's say 3 to 5, or just say 3 people above you and 3 people below you. And the 3 above you are those that encourage you, support you. They're your greatest advocate and pour into that relationship. And then the 3 below you are the ones that that you're pouring into them to help them grow and to pull them and to help them develop in their pursuits. And with what you were saying about the it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of the relationships. And I always think of this image of just, who are the 3 above and the 3 below that are in my sphere of influence right now that I'm working with.
Yeah, absolutely. I may have read this somewhere, but I remember writing it down, and I tell everyone and why this is so important. But your overall depth of your relationships is more critical to your business than anybody knows. In fact, it's definitely more critical than having a perfect solution, because you think about it, when you have a good relationship, you're more open to taking some risk. as an example, if I know I've got a client A, we've got a very good relationship that I know I can count on him for X amount of business, then I may take a bit more risk with that client and actually may be more fruitful rather than, focusing on my website or my PowerPoint presentation. Trevor and I laugh about this all the time because it's not that important to me. It may be important if I was trying to really broaden my scope of my company, but it's not important to how my company, that product is not important to how my success is going to be. What's more important is the relationships and focusing on that. And I found that, at least for me, in the last 8 years, we had a vertical launch. And most recently, I was thinking one of my friends just got an accolade on the Globe and Mail in Canada. He was at number 283 fastest growing companies in Canada. And then I did some math, and I'm like, well, I think I'm number 2 in all of Arizona. But I don't have to relay that. But you get the point. The point is my focus is a little bit different. Now, do I need to do some of that other stuff? Sure, but it's really critical, again, to any business that you work on the relationships and don't focus so much on having that perfect product or solution.
So let's take that back to the plant, Nick. If someone's listening right now, they're working in a manufacturing plant. They're in the regular whirlwind of all the tasks, and in that environment, those tasks become more important than the relationships. So how do you bring yourself back? And then, because if you step back, yes, of course, you need to help your partners at work and help team members. But sometimes, and I know I caught myself where I'd be just focused more on task and, well, this just needs to get done. And sometimes there's damage along the way, but you seem to be able to carry yourself in such a way that you kept those connections and you were able to help others. So what's maybe an experience that for you that you remember that helped you reinforce yourself to stay on that path, or what advice do you have to our listeners?
Yeah, well, I can tell you when I started at Magna Cosma, the relationship is what helped me to get to where I wanted to be or where I ended up. And I'll give an explanation. I started off as a commercial coordinator, and having those higher level, not even higher level, my immediate boss, my peers, some good relationships, which essentially was built trust, that allowed us to, without a perfect product of a business plan, but trust and real depth in that trust and that relationship, allowed enough confidence in our leadership to say, we trust you guys. We know you can do it. We know you can pull it off. You don't have to have the perfect exact business plan, even though we're asking for, $100 million of capital. You have to have the internal relationships with your peers, with us at Cosma, that's more of external, and with the customers, because we, of course, are going to rely on them for that business. So, it became very apparent that if we work together and we foster that, that will be the tool that allow us to get to where we need to be. If you recall back in the days, with Rob and George and even James, but we had Scott and Horst, the fact that they were at Cosma, but we still had that close tie and we were in close communications, and we never had the perfect plan. And it was so fluid, but we did have a good enough relationship and we built that trust over time. We were able to build several facilities. So it took the courage of all of us to trust in each other, but it really was the relationship that took us there.
Wow, that's interesting. It reminds me, for people at all levels in an organization, whether they're new or seasoned veterans, somebody brand new starting their career or starting a new position. Too many times I have seen where they focus on their technical expertise and then impressing the world with what they know and how we did it where I came from, instead of building those relationships where I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the 80-20 rule applies here. you spend 80% of your time on relationships, that for 20% of your time on the technical detail, watch what happens. I mean, somebody challenged me on that, but just
You're
think.
absolutely right. Well, and we would have our the Horst whiteboard would be, many of the notes on there would be who's going to talk to solicit support and build a relationship with people that will influence through their relationships the decision makers at Magna. And
Yeah.
a lot of our strategy was essentially that. Outside of the numbers and the cost benefit analysis and all that jazz, which has to be done, the real kicker was broadening our sphere of influence through relationships to get the ultimate decision to allow us to move forward.
Yeah.
And how do you speak to the people that, hey, I got to focus on me and I just got to drive, I want to progress my career and I want to supersede everybody else.
Yeah.
So
It's
how do you work with
simple.
that person?
It's simple. Try to do something alone. Try in anything. Try to do any construction project alone. You're going to go up and down that ladder 150,000 times. You're going to be trying to lift things you shouldn't be lifting alone. You can't. I shouldn't say you can do things as an I and me and only alone. But the reality is you're going to accomplish much greater things as a we. And I'm not talking just a team. I'm talking about the sphere of influencers, the support teams, the people around you. You're gonna get to your goals much faster if you learn how to use those tools and assets around you. So nothing is easy alone, and nothing happens as an I.
Can't do it alone. And for some reason, there's this mindset of a lack. And it's amazing when you realize that, like I talked about at the beginning, Dave and I working together, like, oh my goodness, in North America, there are so many manufacturing plants that would need our help. And if we had the mindset of, just trying to get business for ourselves, or when we're working together and, you're trying to get recognition of the press department versus the assembly department. And, if you can just step away from that and realize the more I let go and the more I help, the more I'll have. Like, it's a world of abundance.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Very true.
So how have you seen that comes full circle for you, Nick? Because I know that that's always been a core belief of yours. And what have you seen where, you've kept that abundance mindset and you've seen that come back? What's that look like to you?
I always felt that I was fortunate, and don't get me wrong, I worked extremely hard to get to where I am, and with a lot of help of others. But one of my, I'd say, most pleasing experiences is actually helping my team members to also get to a point where they're upstepping their career or they're learning how to deal with a problem. And it's when you go through those experiences and you start to get the mileage, as my good friend Milos Krunik would always say, you need mileage in life to really understand. There's truth to that, right? And experience and seeing different things. But yeah, seeing the younger guys and gals wanting to progress, having the me, the I only kind of a feeling, and then you work with them as as either a mentor or as bringing them in the fold as a team to give them that exposure. I do find that for the most part, many people have that moment where they finally see, and then they realize, okay, this is how I'm going to get it done. This is how I'm going to be able to. I want to learn. I want to absorb, and I want to develop myself and grow. So I think one of my experiences is just watching many other people, and that's part of what I'm doing now, but it's different. The people are an extension of my team. They're my clients, and watching their team members or employees start to have the courage to branch out their relationships and grow and also develop themselves at the same time. I have one manager who's a procurement manager who hasn't really done any type of global sourcing. He's a great guy. He's He just hasn't had that opportunity, and really encouraging him, maybe even almost to the point of fostering, but forcing that he be vulnerable and try, and then pushing it along him so he build his own relationship and see that he can have that success. To me, those are the moments that are the most rewarding to me.
Yeah, I know for myself, even lately, I've launching a new leadership AI program, and I've reached out to some people I haven't talked to in a while, and sometimes I get responses, sometimes I don't, and sometimes I'm overwhelmed in the fact of how much positive influence I maybe had on someone 10, 15 years ago. And it's like that's all you got, dude. At the end of the day, you've got your legacy is how have you helped others? What impact they don't, if I talk to someone that I haven't talked to in 10 years, they don't talk about, me and, oh yeah, I remember you implementing that, or you got that done. They remember how I helped them. That's what they remember.
Absolutely.
So Nick, now with all your busyness, what do you do to keep grounded? I mean, you're not traveling when none of us are traveling like we used to, but what are some of the things that you do to keep grounded?
I try to work out, try to take my dog for a walk, reading a lot more. I think everyone needs to start reading instead of just watching all of the Netflix and stuff every night and blow up your brain. But just try to take some time out for yourself to kind of recharge. You hear that a lot, but really, whether it's breathing or just some simple things, and also time with people that you love. Like a lot of our relationships, they're people we like, and they're business associates, but they're not your family. You and I had this conversation a few weeks back, and spending just zooming out, spending some time with your family, the people that are always be there for you is important. So that's what I do to recharge myself.
Hey, Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot here with what are you reading right now? Or what have you just completed?
So right now I'm reading a new book my daughter bought me. I wish I had it with me. I didn't bring it, and I forget the title, but it's about the actual risk of our nation falling under a cyber attack on our electrical system and grid, and how vulnerable America really is to that. And a lot of people think it's conspiracy theories, but these are all like DOE people and government folks who, it goes back to the old saying. And normally I wouldn't read these books, but for some reason she thought I'd like it, so she bought it for me. And actually I can't put it down because it draws into parallels of, not parallels, actual politics, and how they really are control everything in what we do as a society, and how we control things. I'll give you an example in the book. And in chapter 2 talks about, people don't realize, but we've had a few major power outages, right? For 4 hours, 6 hours. But if you lost all your power, electricity, right now, if we lost electricity for practically 1 week, that would mean we would have no running water, we'd have no frozen food, we'd have just the food, probably all grocery stores would be closed, gas stations would be empty because we wouldn't be able to pump things and replenish. You wouldn't have your cell phone, you wouldn't have your computer. You start thinking about that stuff and you're like, that's only 1 week, that's 7 days. So if it almost starts to intrigue you into this, wow, like that's serious. Like we're very vulnerable when you start to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Nobody has, not every person in their household has a generator, or those type of things. And then, if ever it happened in the winter, I mean, God forbid, we'd have fatalities for sure.
That's cool. I mean, I can't help but think about gratitude in that. While you're reading this book, you got to put it down and say, man, I am thankful for
Oh yeah,
power, electric. I mean, it's
yeah.
just, without that, where would we be? And we take that for granted.
The last book I read was also a book my daughter bought me. It's called This Is Marketing. And it's a great book because it actually reinforces what I believe in terms of, things like what's more critical? Is it your branding? Is it your website? Is it your relationship? So this little orange book can be bought on Amazon. It's by Seth Godin, and it's quite an interesting book to read.
There's an interesting twist there in the fact these are all your daughter's references.
Yeah,
so maybe you're onto something.
Right
it's
on.
true.
Yeah, and I know one of the things that I think we've all done is, like Dave said, two things I think we'll leave listeners with here today is, one is that gratefulness. You know, you read something like that and it really makes you just happy that you got water, or that, you know, and makes you appreciate those relationships. And then also, just as you said, Dave, time to reflect. And I know one of the things that you've kind of changed, Nick, that you told me was spending some time with your dog and not your phone.
Yeah.
And the power of that.
Mm-hmm. It's great. Actually, it's the best. One of the best. I look forward to that almost every second day when I do it. It's super good.
It refreshes our mindset on coming back to relationships, because you can have good information, you can have great jobs, great pay. The relationships will carry with you forever. And thank you, Nick, for coming on today and sharing some of these great lessons, and appreciate you giving some of these secrets to our listeners.
No problem. You're just a simple person, and I'm glad to help.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to join us today. How you show up matters.
We'd love for you to subscribe, share with a colleague, and tell us what you think.
Your feedback's important to provide this high-quality, powerful program that makes a difference in your life and others. Take care.
See you next time.